to Making Sense of Multiple Sclerosis with me, Shirley. I have multiple sclerosis and I want to share some things with you. If you have someone in your life, a family member, a friend, a colleague that has multiple sclerosis, then you need to watch this video. Things people with multiple sclerosis need you to know. So multiple sclerosis is a condition that affects the brain and the spinal cord, and it causes a host of different symptoms for people. It can range from poor balance and maybe poor eyesight at times to quite severe disability, meaning that they can't use their legs and maybe in a wheelchair. They could have problems with arm or leg movement, sensations. Either way it goes, it's a serious and lifelong condition for which there is no cure at the moment. There's a range of drugs on the market to slow down the progression of the disease and minimise the impact of relapses, but as it stands at the moment, there is no cure for it. So I'm going to start with an analogy, and it's going to seem like quite an absurd analogy. It's going to seem really out there, but just bear with me. We all know who Hitler was in history, and we know how awful a person he was, and the way that he treated people, and the tyrant and racist and just horrific crimes that he committed. Now, what if I were to say Hitler had dark hair? He had really dark brown hair. So if I were to pose to you that everybody with dark hair is a racist and a tyrant and evil, it would sound absolutely ridiculous, because just because somebody has a shared characteristic with someone else doesn't mean that they are exactly like that person. And of course, everybody with dark hair is not a tyrant. I have naturally dark hair. It doesn't make me a tyrant. It doesn't make me a racist or discriminatory. It's absurd to judge someone based upon a shared characteristic. Everyone with brown hair is entirely different, one from the other. The same goes with multiple sclerosis. No two people with multiple sclerosis are the same. And that's where a lot of frustration comes from between me and my peers. I'm going to show you an example moving forward of some of the comments that my peers have heard and the profound effect that it has on them. And if you're someone who doesn't really know a lot about multiple sclerosis, then you've maybe said some of these things, I'm sure with the best of intentions, but I want you to listen carefully, because some of these have a profound impact. Okay, so the first thing to know is that there are 3 different types of multiple sclerosis, or MS as we all refer to it. The first type is the one I have, relapsing remitting. It's where I have symptoms and flare-ups and relapses or rebounds. So they come for a period of time where the symptoms will flare up and then they disappear. But thankfully, with the drugs that I'm on, the monthly drip that I get, that reduces the frequency and the severity of any kind of relapse, so that I can live a better quality of life. The second type is secondary progressive multiple sclerosis. Secondary progressive is more or less the second stage on from relapse and remitting, where somebody has progressed so much in the first stage of relapse and remitting that they are now moving into the second stage. And a lot of the times that can be an upsetting transition, because these disease modifying drugs that we've been given in the first instance, if we had our MS identified at an early stage, no longer work or become effective in any way. So it's kind of like moving into the next stage, and it's really difficult because there are very little, if any, drugs for secondary progressive, and that's something that I've been involved in campaigning for, because it seems all the drugs out there are aimed towards relapse and remitting and not so much as secondary progressive, and that's a really lonely and isolated place to be at when you feel there isn't really any help there and there isn't really any medication. So secondary progressive is a tough gig when you get to that point. Primary progressive is multiple sclerosis that have symptoms that are gradually worsening over time. So you're kind of going downhill over time, rather than in the first example of relapse and remitting, where it comes in bounds and relapses back and forward. Primary progressive is a constant stream of progression that never really goes away, and that's ongoing, and that's really difficult too. There's a recent drug on the market in the UK that's been campaigned for, that has been, helpful with primary progressive, but again, it's another particular type of MS that there isn't a lot of drugs kind of available for that at present. So those are your three types. Relapse and remitting comes in little relapses or big relapses if you're unlucky. Secondary progressive, the next stage from relapse and remitting, where a lot of medical drugs are pulled back. Primary progressive, which is a constant progression and deterioration that goes on from diagnosis onwards. So those are the three. So here's number one. Don't compare one individual with MS to another. Here is a person with MS who's a well-known basketball player that struggles with multiple sclerosis but still manages to play and does really well. But here's also someone with multiple sclerosis. Now that shows you the difference in terms of multiple sclerosis affecting people in different ways and to different degrees of severity. Number two, the second thing you need to know. MS is a progressive disease and there is no cure for it. There are lots of what we call DMDs, disease-modifying drugs, which come in the format of pills, injections, suspensions, infusions or drips. I get a monthly drip in hospital every month that keeps me healthy, but there is no cure for it. All these drugs do is slow down the progression of the disease and the severity of relapses and the frequency of relapses. So that's an important thing to bear in mind. People are living with this condition knowing that at present there is no cure. Fatigue. Fatigue is a real problem for a lot of people with multiple sclerosis. It is quite literally disabling. It affects their ability to concentrate on tasks, their cognitive function can be slowed down, their physical ability can be significantly impaired, they can feel weak and literally just unable to function. It's a level of tiredness that is brutal. And there's no competition in conversation with people about being tired. But when it comes to MS fatigue, there's nothing on a level with it that you can understand unless you've experienced it yourself. I know the healthcare professionals will say, oh, it's awful and here's how to manage it. But until you've actually experienced true fatigue, you cannot understand how disabling that is for someone. The best way to support someone with MS through fatigue is to afford them the opportunity to rest and go and lie down or whatever it is that they need. So whether that's taking the children for a little while or taking over some duties or doing some errands, whatever it takes to afford that person the opportunity to rest and close their eyes. And quite often, more times than not, it doesn't make the fatigue go away, but it can help a little bit to manage it throughout the day. It's a real thing, and it is brutal. So this next part that I want to go through with you kind of shocked me, but at the same time it made me laugh a little bit because I've heard a lot of these things myself. I asked my peers in the MS community if they would contribute some of the things that they have really struggled with hearing from people who don't understand MS or what it is or how it affects you. And I wanted to share them with you. And this is the part I was talking about. If you've said some of these things, don't feel bad about it, but at least you're prepared and you understand in the future how that might affect the person with MS. So let's get to it. My friend had that MS, but she died. So yeah. Oh, my nan has that and she's fine. She's 92, so Yeah, you'll be fine. Again, we go back to this whole thing of nobody with MS is the same. So if your nan had that and made it to 92, that's great, but that doesn't mean that someone else with MS will have that same prognosis or outlook or story. Well, I know someone who has MS and he can't walk or talk, so what's up with you? Really? Who does that? Like, seriously, who does that? Everybody with MS is different. Seriously. Just because you know someone with MS with certain symptoms doesn't mean it'll be the same for me or her or him. We're all different. I have a friend that has family and runs marathons at the summer. Why can't you? Is this a serious illness? Fine. You look fine. I mean, you talk and walk normally, you have your makeup on, you laugh. You look good. You look really good. You're looking fabulous. Oh, thank you. That's very kind of you to say. I mean, this morning getting ready for work, I was in a bit of a rush and I kind of pushed myself through the process probably too quickly. I had a meeting first thing and I got in the car and all of a sudden I felt that I couldn't control my bowels and I defecated all over my work trousers. I was really upset and I turned to come back home and I got in the shower and I lost a bit of balance and weakness in my legs because I was so upset, which of course exacerbates the symptoms, being upset and stressed, and I fell over in the shower and banged my head, and then it took a further 2 hours to get dressed and pull myself together and give myself a pep talk and get back in the car and be an hour late for work, and here I am, and but you think I look great, so that's the main thing. That's usually meant with the best of intentions, but it can almost make you feel like a fraud. Unfortunately, the symptoms of multiple sclerosis and the visible part of it is not always there. Sometimes it's invisible symptoms, and that makes it all the harder for people to tolerate and be supportive. Unless you're physically sitting in a wheelchair or using crutches or looking really unwell, there's no visual cue to someone that you are unwell. And people have said to me before, you just don't look unwell, you just, you look great. And if I could carry around 2 Polaroids, I would, but sometimes it's not worth putting out the fire. This is a normal brain without multiple sclerosis and fairly normal cognitive function. And then this is a brain that has multiple sclerosis, and those lit up areas that you see are what are referred to as lesions. I like to kind of think about them like mouth ulcers, when you get those little white horrible mouth ulcers occasionally, and they're really painful to eat on and they impair your ability to eat properly. Well, it's almost like ulcers. These lesions, or plaques as they're sometimes referred to, tend to manifest themselves in certain areas on the brain and the spinal cord, and they destroy this precious outer coating called myelin. I'll not get overly scientific with it, but because they destroy that, it's like taking the cable coating off of a normal wire. It doesn't allow the message to get through, and that household appliance or whatever might not work properly because the wire's damaged. Well, it's the same with the multiple sclerosis damage. And although it may look okay, that's not always necessarily the case. Back in 2017 when I was diagnosed, I had quite an unusual diagnosis in that it was a very acute onset of multiple sclerosis and very aggressive. So in 2 weeks I went from a normal working life and I ended up having a complete loss of my vision, and I was paralysed from the chest down. So I was in nappies, catheters. It was an awful experience, and through these disease modifying drugs and steroids and lots of physiotherapy, I've managed to get myself back to a reasonably normal life. And so people who maybe hadn't seen me for several years would see me today and not really know that I had gone through that, all because of disease modifying drugs. So but the brain damage is still there. These ulcers or lesions or plaques are still on my brain and still on my spinal cord. So if I get too hot, I have something called euthos, that means I can't see until I cool back down again. That's in another video. There's lots of things that I experience. I have to use catheters because I can't go and empty my bladder by myself, or if I do, it's with great difficulty. You know, there's so many things in secret and in private behind closed doors that we are constantly battling with that nobody has any clue about. And just because someone doesn't look sick doesn't mean that they aren't. And I know it's only a natural assumption to make if someone doesn't look sick, but I guess it's just having that little bit of awareness around us all to be kind and to be thoughtful, especially in the things that we say. And if someone has the bravery and the outward openness to say to you, oh, I've got multiple sclerosis, it's a huge thing for them. And to receive any sort of criticism or skepticism, you don't look sick, is really, really awful. Life's hard enough. This one was one that I had to nod to as well because I've experienced it so many times. I'll be in a shop somewhere and it may be a bad day, so I have my crutches and I'm maybe struggling a little bit, and I can count, you know, maybe 8-9 times since 2017 that someone said to me, oh, what have you done to yourself? And they look you up and down, and I used to feel embarrassed for them because I thought, I don't really want to say, well, I actually have multiple sclerosis, but I thought, you know what, I'm just going to say, knowing full well they probably would be embarrassed, and I'll say, oh, you know what, I'm having a bad day, I've got MS and I struggle a little bit on those days, so I just need my crutches, but I'll be fine. And you know, the most shocking thing to me is that the majority of the time people go, oh, all right. Anyway, and they go on to the next thing, and I think, are you not embarrassed that you just asked me why I'm walking like that? Or why do I have a stick? Or what have I done to myself? If I was an 80-year-old woman in a wheelchair with a tartan blanket over my knee, would you ask me, oh, what have you done to yourself? Is it because I don't fit the norm for what disability looks like? It's just something to think about. It's something that's said probably completely innocently with the greatest of intentions, but it has a profound effect on someone and they can feel very insecure about that. So that one is a big one. Why are you walking like that? Well, I don't know. Why is your face like that? I haven't actually said that, but I would love to. I would love to. I heard one lady tell me that she was told, it's all in your head, you know, it's mind over matter. And the sad fact of it is all in our head. Our head is full of lesions and brain damage. You can't psychosomatic that into being and make it manifest from, you know, bad thoughts. Our brain has damage, our spinal cord has damage. That's not something that you're making up in your head or you know, being a hypochondriac over. You can't get away from that. So to hear that somebody was told it was all in their head is awful. And I'm fairly certain most people wouldn't say that. But after asking for contributions from people, the things they've been told, that really makes me sad. So some of the comments that I'm sharing with you are pretty straightforward, and I would guess most of the viewers would go, yeah, no, I wouldn't say that, that's ridiculous. But people do say it, and that's the problem. The next one is the whole thing about time. You're so like late for stuff, and you're so selfish with your time, you know, why can't you just get on with the laundry? Push yourself onward when you're feeling tired and not feeling well. And that's actually the worst thing an MSer could do. I refer to people with MS as an MSer. Some people might be offended by that, but it's just a term that I use. The worst thing you could do if you are a partner of someone with MS or a family member or a friend of someone with MS is to criticise the fact that they haven't achieved something, because you have no idea how much effort it takes sometimes to put one foot in front of another. And it's not about just being, you know, upset or you can't be bothered or you're lazy. It's the physical and mental cognitive inability to actually do something, and that in itself is absolutely demotivating and debilitating to that person. So to tell them that they're selfish with their time, or they haven't accomplished laundry, or they haven't done anything with the kids, or that is the worst part. I have a really supportive partner, and I could not imagine my life with someone who criticised me, or questioned why I hadn't achieved certain things throughout the day. I just think, and it's the same with my work, I have the best team of people that I work with, and my management are second to none. And I feel very fortunate because I hear some terrible stories about that. My management really understand it, and even if they don't always understand it, they always accommodate for it. And that in itself is it's just like feeling understood, and that is so important. So I have to say that to accuse someone of being selfish with their time and not supporting them, or saying they're lazy, or when they have multiple sclerosis, I mean, the battle is so much of a horrible one in the first place, but then to not have that support, you have no idea what is going on beneath the surface, and it is horrendous. The one that I heard yesterday was kind of a two-stroke one. Do you really need a blue badge? Do you really need any kind of disability benefits? I mean, you look okay. There are days where someone with MS may be able to walk and get about and do whatever they need, and then it's so variable for some people that the next day they can't physically sit up in bed. They can't physically feed themselves. And it's almost a complete dilemma in the other person's head, because they can't get to grips with the fact that this person could be okay one day and not the next without being a faker. You must be faking that you're not well, because you managed something one day but you didn't the next day. That's got to be fake. I mean, you're either ill or you're not. That's the way people view it. And I have to say, prior to getting MS myself, I was very skeptical of people who had a variable condition or a bad day. And I thought, well, I'm sure it happens, but it's almost a kind of karma, I think, for me, because I've really learned a lot from the fact that there are some awful days, and there are days where you really can't achieve anything. It's just, you've just got to go with it and accept what your body can do and accept your limitations. And that's difficult for a lot of people with MS. It can take years to master, I think. I'm still not there. I push through things I shouldn't. And my partner and my son, they'll all say, well, you stop. And I just want to complete a task. I just want to get something done. So absolutely, if you find that some days you can't walk at all, then you're absolutely entitled to a blue badge. Whether that happens 4 days a week or whether that happens 7 days a week, it doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is, it does happen. So yes, you need a blue badge. And I have to say, honestly, I would only use a blue badge whenever I have those bad days. I don't just swing into car parks and, put one in and skip out the car. I do it when I need it. So I just think, to even ask someone with MS, which is on par with motor neuron, Parkinson's, all these new debilitating neurological conditions, you absolutely need a blue badge. You absolutely should be entitled to any kind of disability benefit, because if you can't go into work for as many hours as other people can because of this condition, then if there's financial assistance there, if there's any kind of benefit there to help make ends meet and get you through life with a debilitating condition, then yes, you're entitled to it. It's not brain science, rocket science. It is brain science. It's not rocket science though. So, moving on. The last part that I asked my MS peers to kind of clarify for me, what kind of things do you want people around you to know that maybe you haven't felt able to say, or that you don't have the energy to say? What is something that you want people around you to know about your MS? The first one was, it's not personal when I don't have energy to do things or attend social functions, especially if I cancel something last minute. Our condition is so variable. And that is true. You can plan all week to go for coffee, and then it comes to that day and you just can't do it. You can't put one foot in front of the other. And good friends and family and people who do get it, or at least are tolerant or sympathetic towards it, will understand that. But it's not a personal thing. If somebody with MS can't attend something or pulls out at the last minute, it's purely because they are unable to function and they have no other choice. You sometimes hear about something called the MS debt, where the theory is that if someone with MS spends a week conserving their energy, or spends a period of time up until an event or an appointment and conserves that energy, on the day they should then be able to attend that appointment without any difficulty, which actually doesn't really work, because there are times that you could rest a week and still be tired. But anyway, the MS debt theory is that you save up for that and then you spend it on the day. Or you don't save up for it, you attend the event, and then afterwards you have to recuperate for days, weeks, however long that energy took out of you. You have to pay that debt back. And so that MS debt theory is fairly viable in a lot of circumstances. And that's something to think about as well. The next one that a peer of mine said, and this kind of hit me personally and I really liked it. I thought that needs to go in some sort of MS literature somewhere, because I really like that. She said, I may look fine, but considering most of the symptoms remain invisible until they're poorly functioning, saying I'm fine doesn't mean I am. She said, I may look as if I carry myself well, but that doesn't mean the load I carry isn't heavy. And I thought, that's so true. You may look like you're functioning normally, but inside you're just really struggling to get to the end of the workday, or you're really struggling to get to the car with your shopping, or you're really struggling to stay awake, or you're really struggling to be able to see or to control your bowels. You're really working hard underneath the surface. It's that whole analogy of seeing the duck or the swan on the lake, and underneath their feet are just paddling 100 miles an hour, but they look so graceful on the top. I really like that. I may look like I carry myself well, but that doesn't mean the load I carry isn't heavy. Deep. Just because I walked fine yesterday doesn't mean I can today. MS is a varying condition. I wish people understood this. I've already talked about that and I think got the point across, but it is really variable. And that's why they had this rule at one point for obtaining any kind of disability benefit in the UK anyway, where I am, that you had, if you could walk so many yards, you were ineligible for any kind of benefit. And considering that MS is a variable condition, let's go on the assumption that you attend that appointment and you go on a day that you're doing exceptionally well, or it's just a good day. That doesn't accurately reflect your ability or your limitations with MS, and isn't really a fair trial for anybody with a variable and progressive neurological condition. So I really do get that people don't understand that, especially when our own lawmakers and politicians don't understand that. So that's something that I actually raised at Downing Street when I was there with Theresa May, but we'll not get into politics on this channel. I'd rather not, unless it's to fight for MS. Next one. Brain fog is a real issue. Recalling memories or words and recent tasks can be a struggle for some with MS. Please just give us time and space. That's so true. There are days, especially if I'm tired or getting on the cusp of being fatigued, there are some times that I really can't get the words out. Now, it's a normal everyday thing for most people to slip up on their words. Everybody does it. Oh, what's that thing called again? Oh, the mouse mat. There are things that we all do, and it can be exacerbated during times. For example, a lot of women going through menopause struggle with that kind of word loss. But that brain fog can be really difficult. It literally descends like a fog, and everything is harder to think about and harder to compute. Prior to my MS diagnosis, I would be able to, at work, type on the computer with a phone in and be able to listen to something in the background, albeit very spread thinly. I would be able to multitask really well. But since I've had MS, I really don't, cope well with that. My speech still stutters sometimes, and I struggle sometimes to get my thoughts out. Or if I'm making a phone call to someone and I really only need to say one point, I say all this rubbish because I can't get the words out, which is what I was really worried about in starting an MS channel, because I thought, well, the whole platform is via video, and if I can't get the words out properly and I talk nonsense, it's going to be of no benefit to anybody watching it. So that whole brain fog is a real issue. So sometimes it's not about being difficult or awkward. Someone with MS, sometimes, not all of us, but some of us need a bit extra time to compute what you've just said, or what you're saying, or what you're asking. It's not necessarily that, we're being awkward or that we're stupid. We just need that extra time to compute what you've said. And a little bit of allowance for that would be really helpful. And memory is a real issue. I have that at home all the time. I'll have family members or my partner saying, I told you this, do you not remember that? I did tell you that, Shirley. And I'm going, no you didn't. And I blankly, absolutely vehemently deny that I've heard that, until maybe we go back in a text and I go, you did tell me that, but I don't remember that. Am I getting dementia? It's just this whole issue around memory and brain fog and cognitive function. It's variable, so just be patient and understand that it's difficult at times. And it would be for you too if your brain was covered in crap. Another peer said, sometimes I don't disclose how I feel because I don't want to get into conversation about it. It's sometimes easier to say I'm doing well. And it is, because in British culture especially, it isn't accepted for us to say, how are you doing? Oh, I'm doing really crap. I'm doing awful. I've had a headache and I can't see out my right eye, and I've wet my pants twice this morning. And you would see the person that asked you going, God, I wish I hadn't asked. It's just not accepted in British culture to be the Debbie Downer. Nobody wants that. So it's just easier sometimes to say, I'm fine. And the problem with saying I'm fine all the time is that it can be misleading to others, and that folks with MS can go, oh yeah, I do fine, I do well, I'm okay. And in actual fact, we're maybe not doing very well, but it's sometimes just easier, and that can be misleading to anyone who's in our company, because they think, well, she said she was fine, so she must be. So that's something to think about as well. There's a couple of peers have also said that, I'm actually happy not to discuss MS every time I'm talking to you. I don't feel the need to talk about my condition. I sometimes just want to talk about what was on TV last night, or I sometimes just want to talk about what I'm doing at the weekend. I don't necessarily feel the need to update you on my condition all the time. It's different. For every person with MS, it's different. Some people are naturally in life private people and like to keep their struggles and their journey to themselves. There are other people who perhaps overshare. That would be me. I always say far too much and make people very uncomfortable at times because I tell them everything in great detail. That's not always helpful either, but that's who I am. Everybody's different, and it's about you knowing the person well enough to be able to ask them, do you want to talk about it, or would you rather I didn't? Just ask someone. There's no harm in saying, or do you like chatting about it, or would you rather I didn't mention it? It's so good to just be able to communicate with someone flatly and openly. What do you want? So sometimes people don't feel the need to talk about their MS, and that's okay too. So to round some of that up after we've talked about it, what are some ways that you could help us folks with MS? Well, I pulled a few out of the comments that I'd had there. Offer help, but don't take our independence away. Offer opportunities for rest, i.e. can I take the kids? Can I help with housework? Be sympathetic. Don't assume that we need that, but ask. Speak openly with us. That's a huge one. Be patient, especially when we're experiencing memory fog, emotional periods, and just understand that the impact on us for our mental health and emotional health is significant, because we remember what it was like to be like you are. We remember what it was like to be healthy and to be normal. We remember what it was like to have a journey without a significant disability or impairment or health condition at all. And that's a hard transition. Some people never actually ever accept that, and it can be a constant internal battle. So be patient with us. And the biggest thing, everyone with MS is different. So don't compare us to other people that you know that has MS, because we're all so different. And the biggest thing of all, just be kind. If you're not sure that it's going to be a beneficial thing to say, don't say it. It's like your granny always said. If you got nothing nice to say, shut your mouth.